So what I'm going to do first of all is create a couple of what they call branching units, okay? Now, one of the rules with a branching unit is it's got to be of the same flower material. So I can't pick up an ivy and a spray rose and do it together. I have to either do all ivy or all roses together, okay? So I'm going to go to my first smallest ivy. Now, when I say corsage, do you know what a corsage actually is? Do we know what we're actually achieving here?
It's a brooch.
It's a flower spray that a lady or will wear at a wedding or a graduation. It's very feminine design. So you don't want it to be massive. Okay, it's not a wedding bouquet on the wearing it. It's small, it's delicate, okay? So I always go for the smallest ivy, but you don't want to work too high up. We're not bunching, okay? A branching unit is supposed to represent how stems are naturally on a stem. I mean, that's probably a pretty ugly stem, that ivy there, but that's the sort of idea that it's supposed to represent. So we're going to go for the smallest of the ivies, and then the next one, size graduation. So I'm going to place in my smallest one to the side. I'm not placing it in here and twisting it over, okay? I'm placing it into the side. And what I don't want to do is start binding and twisting and all that sort of stuff. Just let them naturally sit alongside them. Because it's wax, you can squeeze it, it will slightly stick the heat of the wax. Okay? And then I'm just going to then take that together now, here. And the idea of a branching unit, you can actually then cut one of the wires away and it makes it lighter. Okay? And then I'm going to attach another one. You can leave the tape on if you want, or you can do another one. So this is going to go to the side, again slightly smaller. So this is building the background to my design, so it supports my flowers. Tape it, get a certain point. Remember, we want to make it as light as possible, so you can cut one of the wires away. Tape. Okay, and you could, if you wanted to, attach a fourth one, depending on the size of your leaves, but mine are actually quite big, so I'm going to just do 3. So that's a branching unit, yeah? So I've got that. I'm going to do a small branching unit of my spray roses. And it's a way of, because the stems are quite short and I want it up high in my design, doing a branching unit just gives you a little bit of extra stem length and a bit more support as well. So again, that's with the buds. Oops, my tape's come off. Now this time I'm not going to cut that bud wire there, I'm going to leave it just because I want to get a bit more support to it. Alright.
Using your jumper?
Okay, so I'm attaching my branching unit. I'm going to cut it one way. So remember, it's of the same material. I'm actually going to I might add one more, because it just gives us a little bit. And each time I'm bending it out, you see it's creating that sort of kite shape. It's like a miniature cone wrap bouquet or a miniature flat hat bouquet that you've made on unit 204. Sort of like a mini version. When I'm cutting my wire, I'm cutting upwards as well to give it a little bit of an angle so it doesn't make it too sharp. And taping. Okay. So that's my branching units. So now I'm going to construct. So I get my ivy first. Now I may use this real wire. Okay, so I'm going to get a little bit ready. This is a different real wire than what we use for mossy chaplets. This is a thinner one. This is actually what we use for wedding work. It's green coated. You may want to use that if you feel you need to. So we're going to start off like a miniature cone rack. Start with your ivy. You can lay it on the table if you want, or in your hand. You lay your roses there first. Okay. Just here, this area here, is where our binding point's going to be. Okay, down here. So we're then going to work with these gaps in here, like building up that cone wrap bouquet. So I'm going to bring in a little bit of the wax flower. Okay, don't twist, and you mustn't tape. Very, very important. Don't tape as you go along. Okay, you can actually fail your assessment doing that, and the reason why is when you tape, you've created a binding point. If you add more flowers, tape again, another binding point. Add more flowers, tape again, another binding point. which means you have more than one, and you only allowed to have one binding point at the end. So that's really important, not to be taping as you go along. Which is why you can bind with some wire though, if you feel you need to. So again, if I want the material this side, I'm bringing it in that side of that binding point here. I'm not taking it this side and twisting it, because then you get crossing wires. Okay. If I feel, oh, I need to put it down, or I need to do something, get some of your real wire. Just get a short end and just wrap round once. Probably got a bit too much wire going on here. That end I'm just going to bring with the rest, and just keep that attached now, so that you can put it down and do whatever you need to do. Then I'm going to build up a bit more of my wax flower. The only thing about using real wire, which is why I personally don't use it, is that if you bind and keep binding and your wire travels, you can actually lose marks with travelling real wire. So sometimes it's good practice just to do it in your hand, really, until you get to the end, and then bind it at the end. But it's down to personal choice, whatever you feel is easier for you. Right, that's my focal. I'm just going to go here. So I'm going to build, this is my profile. Do you remember on the comb wrap we had that profile building up? So I'm now building my profile up. Okay. My two medium ones are going to go on the sides. I'm actually bending them, and they're going to go in this one area here, this binding point. So I'm going to just bind this now, just to help me out a little bit. Around once. This extra bit I'm just going to add down. So building it out. This one's going to go on this side, so I'm bending the wire literally at an angle like that, taking it to the side where that binding point is. It's very important, that's how you get the higher marks, to have one binding point. Okay, got your profile. Still haven't put my focal flower in. I've got a bit of recession or something now, so I might put a little bit of, it's a bit long actually, this is I'm just going to be a bit cheeky. Make a little bit. Put a bit of that on the side. Remember, it's being worn, so people will see from the sides as well as from the front. Put a bit of wax flower in, there's some recession. Might want to bind it just to give your hands a break. Squeeze it, always squeeze together as well. Gives the stem nice and thin. A good wide design is where you've got a nice thin stem. And now I'm going to put my focal in. The focal goes in line where the binding point is. So it actually sits practically at that angle. Yeah, so it sits at that angle there. And that's your profile building up. But it looks a bit strange on its own, so I need to build the sides up a bit. So I'm going to bring in that at the side. Maybe actually I'll put that side just to bring, looks like the asparagus is going through the design. And a little bit on the side of there. Okay. And then you get to this area at the bottom now, which is what we call the return end. Okay. So anything under this focal flower in this area is what we call the return end. And you know we're talking about our proportions, 1/3, 2/3. Well, this is 2/3. So from the focal to the top. So to find out what a third is, you would halve it. So like about there. So you know your return end needs to come to down here, and that helps with the visual balance and the actual balance. So to do that, we add flowers in, or a little bit of the same material that's at the top here. I'm going to leave my leaf till the very end. And what you're actually going to be doing is bending your wires like this, literally over, and you're actually going to be sort of like pushing them up. You're not going to have the wires coming up like that, okay, but they're actually going to be bending over like that. So I'm now building my return end with a few buds, like that. Again, you might want to bind, because sometimes the return end swings a little bit. A little bit of wax flower. Actually, I'm just going to make that a bit shorter. This bit looks nice as well. And use this little bit of asparagus. Now, you wouldn't think all that material that you've just wired would come into one such a small little design. How much do you think retail-wise you could sell something like this for? Anyone sell these in their shops or make them in their shops? Retail price?
About £10.
£10? Do you think your customer would pay £10?
You never hear your money.
Anyone got any lower offers? 12. Melissa, how much do you say your corsage is for in your shop?
A rose corsage would be anything from about £8.50 to £12.50.
I don't think you could go beyond 12 because I don't think you can justify it. It's such a small
But it's taken you
time.
35 minutes to make it anyway, so...
It has, but then does your customer really,
Sure.
are they interested in that? They just want to see their product, so it's...
Yeah, but we have to charge ourselves, innit? So.
I know what you mean,
£5.
but yeah, I would think anything about £8 would be less. You're not making anything on it really. Although at the end of the day, it's just one stem of rose and a few ivy. Sometimes I use my leftover bits of flowers from my wedding to make them corsages. So I've just put the leaves there as a collar. That's my last position for my actual ivy leaves. I'm then going round a couple of times just for security really of my wire. Keep squeezing as tight as you can. Instead of them wrapping that around, I'm just literally going to straighten it, because if you wrap and then I tape it, you're going to get this bobbly stem. So I'm just literally going to straighten it. Okay. Now we've got to cut the stem a third. Now, if you've used the right sort of positions, it'll just be under the tip of that ivy. So we're going to cut it a third. If your stem's quite thick, cut some of the wires away. It's what we call taper. Please be careful with your scissors and your fingers, guys. This is the sort of time when you might nip them, so just be careful. So I've cut some of the wires away, but I'm cutting up, so it's a nice sharp angle, so you don't get bits sticking out. Now this is the only time when I'm allowed to tape the whole thing together. I'm taping as high as you can where the binding point is, and then down all the way to the bottom. It may need a couple of tapes to make sure you've got no wires sticking out, because again you could injure somebody, which is not good. Also at the end here I can see one. When you get to the end, what I tend to do is go around the bottom several times, and then it will just sort of come away on its own, and then you can use a little bit of plastic just to bobble it up. And then for delivery, you would spray your design with some water, and assessment you must as well, so it's all nice and fresh, and you would present it with a pin so that the person can actually wear it, and that pin normally goes up into the design so it doesn't injure them. I mean, as florists, we traditionally design it to be worn like that, but what a lot of people do is they'll wear it like that. Which is fine. It's okay. I don't know, it's tradition. You see a lot of people will wear them. Actually, it probably feels quite comfortable. And that's why having flowers in this return makes it interesting for the viewer from sort of down bird's eye view. But it is also designed to be like that. Yeah? So remember, profile, size graduation, 1/3, 2/3, one binding point, only tape at the very end. Let's see how we get on. Yeah?